Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is Friday. It was a beautiful week here in the Ozarks. As you can see behind me, that's pretty much what it looked like. It's gorgeous. I love this time of year. Everything is blooming and it was really great. So I've kept busy, but I think it was a good week. Had a great show with Z-Man. If you haven't, check it out. It's on Rumble and it's on YouTube, and I think it's still on X. So there's a few ways you can see it there. But we had a lot of time, so we had a good time there. And hey, it's good to see you all guys in Rumble. And yeah, tonight's our Friday show, and our Friday show is a little different. We're a little bit more kickback. And if you want to interact with the show, let me go ahead and place some of the where you can call in. I'll place the StreamYard link and feel free to call in and have a question or a quick comment. And I'd love to hear from you. That's what we do Friday nights. And I put the link in now. I'll probably put it again in a few minutes, but it's great to be here. Yeah, a lot of stuff to go over. And if you want to help support the show, if you have a question, a comment, I love it. The YouTube has super chats, Rumble has rants. You see below the power chat. And also, I encourage you guys to sign up for my Substack. I did a more of a little bit reflective video today on Substack, and I got a lot of good feedback on it. I think a lot of people can relate to various things. So if it every Friday I do a member only video. Monday through Thursday I do a video, open to the public. So even if you don't pay, which you should, but if you don't pay, just still sign up for Substack, and you get my Monday through Thursday videos. I can't talk tonight. Can't talk. And I appreciate that. I'm trying to regrow. Originally as Patreon, then Gumroad, now it's Substacks. I'm trying to regrow that. So thank you, all of you who are a part of that, and it's growing. So guys, be part of the fun. And also, on if you're a Substack member, every Tuesday we have a roundtable. We had a great session this week. All our sessions are getting better. It's a lot of fun. I say a session like it's a therapy session, and it kind of is. We get into stuff. It's usually a group of guys, but sometimes some women join too. Sasha pops in sometimes. We have a great discussion though. So I highly encourage you to sign up for my Substack. Hey, I already got a caller to the Ramsey Paul show. And hey, Digitaz, how are you doing? Welcome to the Ramsey Paul show. You're on, Digitaz. How you doing?
Oh, hello, Ram. So sorry, I just had to flick off another screen. It was getting
No.
echo.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
I was just thinking. I think probably we're all a little bit upset about the Trump administration in that we've all lost money in the stock market because of his actions, and it just reminded me of when he came in the first time. That if you look at it prior to COVID, we all made an awful lot of money out of the stock market when he was the president. And we tend to forget about that. And we've gone from uh, the president that made us all wealthier if we obviously had stocks, etc. And now he's come in the 2.0 version, and it's like he's clawing back some of that he gave us for nothing. But I still have faith that he's on the right track. I think he's doing something that is one of those things that you have to do. It's a bit like it's you keep putting it off because there's pain involved, but in the long run, it's probably the best thing that'll ever happen. And I'm kind of fingers crossed that he'll be able to get this agenda of the tariffs done. Even though I think you've mentioned, Rams, that when he started with this moratorium for 90 days, that's a clear indicator that he misread the market and he had to just stop. And I think they must be there thinking and scratching their heads as to, do we want to continue on with this or do we want to change tack? And I hope they just continue on and really tackle the big issue, which is, I think, is Europe and China, which is, I mean, that that was something that had to be dealt with because they're just running roughshod over everybody, and not just the US, but everybody. It's
Yeah.
about time somebody stood up to China and said, "That's it." And just the final point I'll just make about China, I think that their economy is nowhere near as robust as what they make it out to be. I really do think it's really it's bamboo and rice paper, and it wouldn't take much. I think they've got more to lose than anybody else, and they know that they have to keep those exports going. If you think about it, that their whole economy is geared towards providing all of the goods for the rest of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, they're the big manufacturing hub, and the United States is the largest customer, so that definitely will have an impact on China. And I agree with you. I think they're more nervous than they're letting on. They're acting like they don't care, but obviously they do care very much. So we're in a very interesting time. So hey, thank you for calling in. You have anything
Okay.
else? Or all
No,
right,
that was it. Okay.
all right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. And I want to feel free, guys. You guys can call in too. Let me put in the. I love getting callers. By the way, this is a Friday show. We're just all kicked back, kind of mellow. And again, I'll put the link there. You can call in. And Digitus, he's a good supporter on Substack. He's part of the roundtable. He has a lot of. He's one of my favorite people on the roundtable. He has a lot of interesting perspectives. Some of the stuff, I don't want to rehash everything, but at a high level, I'll go over this. Um, I, the big test is going to be when we start to have consumer shortages of products in the United States. So many things are made in China, and we effectively almost have a trade embargo with us. So you have the two largest economies in the world not trading with each other, and that's going to cause pain on both ends. And let me just kind of address your points. The first point is about the stock market. Well, yeah, we had the initial uh, downturn of the stock market, but then it went back up, and then the other day was down a little. Now today was up, and it hasn't really just like totally crashed. We're over 40,000, I believe. So it hasn't been that drastic. Now, may in the future, I don't know. I can't predict the stock market, but I think there's a lot of tensions in the Trump administration of how to go about this fundamental change. And I think we need a fundamental change away from globalism to economic nationalism. We can't have a healthy country if we export all manufacturing jobs to China. We just can't. It's a security risk, national defense risk. You need good jobs for people in our country. And yeah, there's been a lot of pain for people in stocks, but it's really like 10% of the people who own 90% of the stocks. I know there's a lot of 401k, so I'm not really sure on that issue, but there's a lot of people that don't own any stocks whatsoever. They don't have Bitcoin, they don't have stocks. So for them, they don't really care. So if you're just some average bubba, and there are some bubbas around where I live, living in a trailer park in Fayetteville, you don't care about stocks or Bitcoin. You care about being able to get a decent job. So that's the point that Trump's trying to do there, I think. But the trouble is, it's not as easy to shut down a factory in China and bring it over here. That requires a capital investment. And then you don't know if you're a business leader, does Trump really mean this? Is he going to follow through on these tariffs? Or is he going to roll them back? Or if we, in 4 years, if we get a Democrat president, will they roll them back? If that's the case, if I'm a business owner, I don't want to relocate all my production in America that's really expensive. Then all of a sudden, we're just fooling you. We're taking the tariffs off again. Then I'm like, oh shit, I got to go back to China and get the low cost labor. So I think there's a lot of confusion in the market right now. And we haven't seen too much issue right now, but it's still early. But within a few weeks, we may start to see shortages of some goods like at Walmart and so forth. And how will the consumers react? Will Trump blink? we're kind of playing a game of chicken with China, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not, as I said before, I'm not really sure if Trump is serious about this or he's going to roll it back. I don't think anyone really knows, and so that's going to be a something a key to watch on the tariffs. And again, I won't spend too much time tonight on the tariffs just because I think it's been such a big issue. I've talked about it a lot. Z-Man and I had our Wednesday show, and I encourage you guys to watch it. We really went over this topic, so I don't want to rehash everything on that. But thanks for the question. It was a good question. All right, let's just go through some of the news of the day. And again, if you guys have a question, there's power chats, super chats, or rants. I appreciate them. Or call in for a question. Everyone could call in for free. I appreciate your engagement. All right, today we had, let's see here, breaking. The court just ruled that Muhammad Kali can be deported. Common sense was restored. So I guess with a name like Muhammad, isn't like everyone's name Muhammad is seen as Muslim. It's just crazy. I wonder how they do it in school. Like when you're kindergarten or first grade, Johnny, yes, Jason, yes, and my day, Paul, yes. Now, if they do Muhammad, they all raise their hands. I mean, come on, think of a more original name, right? But he's named Muhammad. Well, this is a couple of issues here because I have different feelings about this. On one hand, I don't know if he should be in the country anyway. I don't want the country. I don't want a lot of Muslims in our country. See, the problem is I don't have to abide by a universal principle. And now let me just kind of back this up and explain by this. Z-Man had a great broadcast today. He does one every Friday. I encourage you guys to listen to it. He was talking about ideologies and being an ideologue. That means someone that's really driven by your ideology. Like, I'm a libertarian, so I got to believe these things because this is what libertarians believe, or I'm a socialist, or I'm a nationalist. And it comes, or you're a leftist, and you have all these different things that are sort of required for you to believe to be part of that club. And he says he doesn't like to be an ideologue. He likes to kind of be free of that. Obviously, we have a way of looking at life, but you got to analyze everything specifically and by their own merits. And that's what I try to do with a lot of this. Because if you're here's the thing, okay? He was kicked out, this Muhammad Kali. My understanding is he didn't really break any laws or he did anything wrong objectively if a United States citizen did it. But he was part of the protest against Israel about Israel's behavior in Gaza, which is basically like a genocide they're committing. And I don't really care that much, to be honest, but let's just call a spade a spade. They're just wiping people out. So he was protesting that, and he's not a United States citizen. And there's so many different layers to this. And basically, my philosophy now is I want to do what's best for me, my family, and my neighbors and my people. It's kind of like a concentric circle. I think that's how we have to look at just basic, I don't want to say nationalism, but how we live as humans. You first care about your immediate family, then your extended family. You may not like them all, but they're still family. Then your neighborhood, then your nation, which is people that are closely related to you by blood. And then further on, your country, and then maybe your humankind or whatever. But you should always focus on the inner circle first. And that's what I do. So the Jewish people, they have a saying when they evaluate everything, not all Jewish people, but they have a saying, what's good for the Jews. So they don't really get so much locked into set principles, and they have some of these double standards, but they don't really care. And the one that comes to mind is like, say, Ben Shapiro, right? He said famously he doesn't care about the browning of America. He believes in, or he did, open borders, or at least a massive immigration. And he said, I don't care if people turn brown in America. He doesn't really care about that. But he did about Israel. He wants his ethnic homeland to be defended with strict immigration. And it's easy for us to say, aha, we caught you in a double standard. But see, that's not really an issue for him, I don't think. And it's not really a gotcha because his standard is what's best for his people, right? So if he, by his standard, and I don't want to talk for Ben, and I'm not picking on Ben, I just pick him up because it comes to mind. There's many like this, right? So, and I'm not referring to all Jewish people, but Ben Shapiro, I believe how he would think through this, or many people like him are like, okay, what's good for my people? Like, first of all, he uses that same model, I'm sure himself, his family, and then his ethnic people, Jews. He's like, well, we have the history of Nazi Germany, and if white people have their own countries, if they're Christian, they could pose a threat to my people that are in minority in these countries. And it's better for my people if that's kind of broken apart. And so, yeah, I support massive diversity in Europe, break apart nations like Germany and even the United States. But my homeland, Israel, ethnic homeland, I want to preserve that. So for him, it's not really a contradiction. He goes, yeah, I want borders for my homeland, but I don't really care about America. In fact, I'm fine with it because I think, I don't want another Third Reich to come about. And I'm not saying Ben thinks this, but a lot of people do. So let's break it apart, make sure there's no white countries anymore. And so that's sort of the thought process of a lot of these people. And again, I'm not saying Ben, I can't be telepathic. Everyone thinks differently. But this is a kind of the way they think. And we will say, ha, it's a double standard. But them like, well, no, we have one standard is what's good for our people. And I've started to say and advocate that should be our standard, what's good for our people. So even if it's different. So because what happens, we get trapped in our ideology. Let's say if you're a libertarian and you support free speech. Well, it shouldn't matter if you're a citizen of America or not a citizen. You should advocate people coming in and speaking their minds. Because I think this Muhammad guy, I don't think he was doing any terrorist acts or anything. And I'm not sure of all the specifics, but I don't think he was doing that. It was just his protesting against Israel. And my belief is, so if you're a libertarian, you're like, well, wait a minute, it doesn't matter if he's not a citizen. We still have a tradition of free speech in this country. We should welcome people that come over here that say things we may disagree with. And if you look in like the dissident circles, we already have this issue with people like Martin Sellner. When I went to American Renaissance, he was unable to get in the country. And he's not a terrorist. He's never committed a crime, a very intelligent man. He advocates for national identity. He's Austrian, but the United States forbids him from coming into our country. Even though he's not a criminal, he's not going to do any terrorist acts. He's just going to come to a private meeting and speak, and still the U.S. government prevented him from coming in. I think that's ridiculous. He should come in, even though he's not a United States citizen. So the standard that initially I struggled with was, well, wait a minute, but if we allow someone like Martin Sellner come in, then we have to allow Muhammad coming in, right, and agitating things up. And then I thought, well, no, I'm going to channel my inner nationalist, right? Ben Shapiro. I'm going to channel my inner Ben Shapiro, and I'm going to reframe it instead of in an ideological terms, right? I'm going to reframe it just in what's best for our people. And I think it's best for our people that Martin Sellner should be able to come and speak. And I don't think it's best for our people that someone named Muhammad should be running around. And it's not that I give a shit about hurting Israel's feelings or anything like that, or I'm pro-Palestinian. I don't want them over here. I don't want Palestinians in Europe or America. And I don't have a dog in the hunt with their battle in their Middle East. I don't want Muhammad here. So anything that gets Muhammad out of our country, I'm okay with. But then, see, if I was thinking in ideological terms, it's like, well, I can't do that because if I say that Muhammad can't be here, then Martin Sellner, the government has a right to kick out Martin Sellner. And I'm like, no, it's two different things. And Martin Sellner is good for our people. Muhammad is probably bad for our people, because most of these agitators on the left that protest against Israel, don't fool yourselves that somehow they're on your side and they're pro-white people. They're not. They hate you. They hate you. Just because they're anti-Israel doesn't mean they're for you. I remember that guy. I don't know if he's still on Twitter. He got suspended for a few months. He's John Gage or Angelo Gage, or does he go by a different name now? Luca Gage? I don't know. I think he legally changed his name. But he got really into just one subject. Like some of these people, they get the mind virus. They can only talk about that one group. And he just got obsessed with it. And these are the type of people that I stand in solidarity with the Muslims. Hey, Palestine, wave the flag and all that. He tried to do that because he hates Israel so much. But then he was shocked to find that the Palestinians that he dealt with, they also hate white people. Surprise. And so we shouldn't have this false dichotomy, right? So the reason I want Muhammad kicked out of this country has nothing to do with the protest in Israel. I just want him out because the more of them we get out, I'm happier. But Martin Sellner, I want in because I think he's good for our people. So I do the Ben Shapiro thing. I don't have to do the be ideological and I got to do my principles. What are the conservative principles or anything like that? I can get out of that a little bit. So that's my take on that. So I don't really care that he got kicked out, to be honest. All right. And talking a little bit about the Gaza stuff, we'll just go over a few things here. Let's take a look at this. I guess they had a debate on Joe Rogan, and I'll have to watch it here. Let me see who this debate was between. It was between Douglas Murray and Dave Smith. And I think a lot of the debate was about, should you have to believe in the experts, whatever experts are. And I think Douglas Murray tried to argue, no, we should always trust the experts. And Joe Rogan shouldn't have other people on unless they so-called experts. And Dave Smith argued the other way. But they got into the whole Israel thing. And it sounded, I don't know this Dave Smith, but he sounded a lot like me. He uses a lot of the same examples or analogies that I would use. So let's watch this. Here we go. And this was him responding.
Hold on. You got to stop interrupting and let him finish the sentence.
So the tragedy that's been inflicted on Gaza is orders of magnitudes greater than October 7th. Even if you had the right, let's say, somebody broke onto your property and killed some of your family members and you want to go kill this guy. If he goes back to his apartment building and you know that there's women and children in that apartment building, and so your move is to blow up the building, what you would be charged with is murder in the first degree.
This is an example, analogy I use all the time. And you guys, if you follow me, I brought that up about you can try to figure out the morality of things by bringing it down to the personal level. And this is a good point. I brought this up concerning the immorality of preemptive wars. I don't have the right just because, my rancher neighbor, I think he may not like me and he's got guns. So I better be safe. And in the middle of the night, I'm going to go over there and massacre his family. And then I tell the police, well, it was preemptive. It was preemptive. I thought he was going to kill me, maybe. No, that doesn't go fly. I'd be facing first-degree murder. And Dave Smith is right here that if October 7th is a bad thing, definitely, and you go after the terrorists, but that doesn't give you the right to indiscriminately kill civilians. Just like in a personal situation like Dave brought up, if, for example, my neighbor decided to kill someone in my family, I couldn't go back and kill him. I'd have to call the police. But forgetting that, it would be immoral if I got a huge nuclear bomb and just blew out this whole area and killed thousands of other people just because I wanted to kill him too. And that's a good point.
Cold-blooded, premeditated, intentional murder. And you could sit there and tell the judge, I didn't want to kill all those people. Why would I want to kill all of those people? I just had to kill that one guy. But that's not what counts. You did it intentionally. You dropped a bomb knowing that there were women and children in that building. That is intentionally murdering innocent people. And if you're going to advocate for this war, so why can't you just say, yes, that price is acceptable? Because then we could have a real conversation about why the other side is going to look at you like a monster.
Yeah, but this gives into kind of a bigger question. And the other guy, he probably just should say, like, well, I don't care. We're trying to just wipe out all the people. We're just doing the ethnic cleansing and we don't really care. At least I'd be honest. Then you could say, well, okay. And then you could get into a philosophical conversation. Is that right? I mean, it's not new. We did this in World War II in Dresden. It wasn't a military city and we firebombed it, killed hundreds of thousands of people, Germans. That had nothing to do with the war. So this sort of stuff happens quite a bit. I'm going to check that out. It sounds like it created a lot of buzz, that debate. And supposedly the debate mostly was about expertise, trust the experts. And the problem is the experts aren't always right. And the so-called experts, a lot of times, just because they got credentials doesn't mean they're any smarter, they're right, because they have political influences too. They have pressure, they have funding pressure. They're not always as pure as the driven snow. And we need other voices in there. Now, there are other kooky people. Just because you're not an expert and you say something doesn't mean you're right. We kind of saw this with COVID, how we were led down the wrong lane by so-called experts. Although it wasn't really true, because there were experts that doubted the whole story, but they were silenced. So this is a problem when you try to censor speech because you have a certain narrative. You can miss out on something that is actually true. Now, COVID was a good example. There was a lot of crazy stuff that was said by people that wasn't true, obviously. But still, I think in a free market of a place of ideas, you need to allow that to get out there. So I'm going to take a look at that and see how that debate went on Joe Rogan. But I guess it was pretty interesting. And let me just throw out let me see I think I have my call thing in here. Let me just get that here. I'm going to, oh yeah, here we go. I'm going to invite. So here's a StreamYard link. If you want to call in for a question or something, you're welcome to do so. You don't have to turn on your video or anything. You don't have to call in. That's fine. But also, if you have a question, StreamYard or Stream Elements, I really do appreciate it. And it helps a lot. Or Powerchats. I have Powerchats open too. All right. Let's take a look at this next story. Let's see what she's talking about.
Ease their concerns. Sure. The new voter ID requirements may inhibit their access to the polls. What assurances can you give women voters in America to ease their concerns?
This is weird, and I don't know her answer. I'm just watching this with you. The idea that somehow having to show your ID to prove that you are who you say you are is somehow just, oh, women can't do that. How do you expect women to show their IDs? They're just not smart enough to show their ID. What are you doing? I mean, well, then they shouldn't vote if they're that stupid. But it's dumb. I mean, you have to show your ID for everything in this country. You get on the airplane, you have to show all this different identifications. If you apply for anything, you have to show all these IDs. If you want to buy liquor, you have to show your ID. If you want to get in certain bars, you have to show your ID. What are they talking about? That's just life. And voting should be one of the most important things around. Obviously, you should show your ID. And if you don't drive, you still have other ways to get ID. So it's not based on having to drive. This is just basic common sense. Most countries require IDs. But it's really weird. The opponents of this always argue, well, if we have to require IDs, women and like blacks won't be able to figure it out. They just can't figure that out. This is just beyond their means of understanding. First of all, I find that very patronizing because they are able to figure out in other ways to show ID, right? But if they are that dumb, I don't want them to vote. But let's listen to this answer.
Sure. Well, the SAVE Act, as you mentioned, was passed by the House yesterday. This is the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. I believe I'm getting that correct. And this act is a common sense measure. It would require proof of citizenship for voting in our elections. The Democrats have been fear-mongering about this bill, have been saying that married women, if their name has changed, they didn't change it on their identification, would not be able to vote. That is complete fallacy. There are outlined in the bill about how to avoid that. The president very much supports a common sense solution to ensuring that only citizens can engage in our elections. This is critical to improving the integrity of our elections and also the trust that American citizens need to have in our electoral process. So the president supports this bill, and that is a myth that has been proven wrong by the text of this bill. And I believe some of the co-sponsors of the bill have been very vocal in addressing that. And certainly I myself, as a married woman, would not stand before this podium if the president did not support such a common sense measure.
Yeah, I would be harsher. I wouldn't allow women to vote anyway, but it is sort of a myth and it is ridiculous. So yeah, that passed, I guess, the House today. To me, I think it's just a reasonable thing, and we should do this. So I think that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable. All right, let's see what else here. And this is kind of nice to see. Europeans, this probably seems really strange to them, I imagine, to see this with the press secretary. Here she is.
Lord Jesus, please give us the strength, the knowledge, the ability to articulate our words, have fun, and be confident in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay.
I that's nice. There's nothing wrong with her saying a prayer before she. It's probably a good idea to say a prayer before you address the audience. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm sure the left will get all triggered by that. Now they wouldn't get triggered if it was a Muslim doing a prayer, but a Christian, yeah, that probably gives them an issue. So I mean, that's kind of nice. I like it. I don't have a problem with that. All right, another thing, and actually one of my supporters, K-Max, a real life friend too, he sent me this at a private DM, and I thought I'll talk about this a little bit. I guess the ADL is freaking out because President Trump and the FBI, they're changing their priorities from trying to catch white supremacists to actually looking for real problems, people that are creating real terror in this country. And the ADL is getting very upset about that. Any reduction in staff resources or vigilance in which the FBI is combating domestic terrorism poses a real threat to Americans. Extremists are targeting communities, police and government officials, businesses, schools, and religious institutions. Well, who exactly? I'm just thinking off the top of my head, we had that transgender thing that shut up a Christian school. We had recently the people that were trying to assassinate Donald Trump. They were on the left. Almost all the crime, interracial, is black on white. So I'm trying to understand where is this, and when they mean domestic terrorism, they don't mean other races. They mean whites. The ADL. So what happened here is under the Biden administration, they made this the highest priority to try to arrest white supremacists plotting crimes. And that was their FBI's number one priority. That was probably their biggest item in their budget. The only problem the FBI had is there's not many of them around. Hey, I got a caller. So welcome to the show, Streaky Bacon. What's your question?
Hey, Rams, just to say I'm a big fan of yours, so I'll keep it short. I just wanted to know, Rams, as I can see how America is progressing, J.D. Vance is going to be the next president, and probably you're going to get another 4 years. But what I would like to ask you is, can you see an America without the influence of the Amish, shall we say?
Oh, good point. And thank you for your question. I'll ask it off the air, but thank you for calling in and thank you for mentioning the
Thank you,
Amish in that
Ramsey.
way.
Pleasure.
And I love your accent.
I'm looking forward to your answer. You were I gotta say you were one of the best streamers who I've listened to for years. Amongst with Americans, you and Devon Stack are right up there.
Oh, well,
I'm just
thank
gonna
you.
say thank you.
And we probably share, I suspect, some of the same heritage, don't we? From your accent.
Yeah, I know your grandmother is Jones.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. So yeah, it was great.
I'm the Welsh guy that rings you up now and again, but I'd
Yeah,
really love to hear your thoughts on how
yeah,
America
yeah.
could there
That's
be an America without a certain influence, or
good point.
do you see America balkanizing and maybe to get rid of influences? So, for instance, California, it could be people could be asked to go there if they follow like left
Right.
socialists and a succeed. I'm really interested on your thoughts of an America without a certain influence. Thank you very much, and I bid you good night, Rams.
Well, thank you. Very nice. Very good question there. And I will answer it while you're off the air. Thank you. Wow. So I had two callers in, both foreign, both foreign. We got to get at the domestic callers. The good old USA has to catch up. And that's what's great about doing these streams and videos is I get an audience around the world. And this is guys from the British Isles. It's great to hear that. Yeah, it's an interesting question. One about, well, first of all, I'll take the first part about JD Vance. Um, it's early. It's early to say. I think a lot of this depends on how well Trump does in the next 4 years. Is inflation down? Did the tariff thing work? Are we everyone's feeling good economically? Because that's always the key issue. Bill Clinton had a slogan in the 90s. His campaign slogan was, "Is the economy stupid?" And what he meant by that was, don't be stupid and focus on other things. Like now, the Democrats, they didn't understand that. They focused on stupid things like trans rights or something like that. And the economy, though, is what most Americans care about. And again, listening to Z-Man's podcast today, he was right. A lot of Americans, they're not really ideological. They really aren't. They want what's best for them and their families. So that they're not really into some sophisticated, they're not going to be reading John Locke or something like that. They just care about what helps them and their families. The economy's number one. So that's got to be key for Trump. But if Trump does well on that, I think he is going to position JD Vance in a good way. I like JD Vance. I've made that clear. I think he's very well. He's young. He's articulate. He's more on our side than you guys. A lot of us. I mean, more than many realize. He's been influenced by our sphere. He really is. I know he used to be more to the left, neocon, but he's really changed. People change, and we got to embrace that. He's my favorite. But there's could be other contenders in 2028 too. Ron DeSantis, he's a big name. He does well in Florida, although he's not really good at campaigning, surprisingly. And I don't know who else. I don't see Vivek. He's trying to run for governor of Ohio. I don't see that happening. I don't know. We'll have to see who the contenders are. Trump's talk about doing another term, but I don't know if he's serious. You never can tell with Trump. He can't constitutionally run. So we will see with that. Now, as far as America having less foreign interference with our country, boy, maybe. And if you were talking about Israel, and I don't know if I have this in prep, but for the first time in history, the majority of Americans do not support Israel. That's the first time since they started to do that poll. And I'm kind of neutral about Israel. I don't care that there is an Israel. I mean, they're ethno-nationalists. They have their country. That's good. But it's not very popular with a lot of other people. And I will get to that back in a bit. But we got to have an American representative. So finally, we got an American call in. How you doing, 009?
I'm doing great. It's a full moon tonight. Did you know that?
I did. I'll have to go outside and look at the moon. I like doing that at night out here in the dark.
My question is, Trump can't run again, but what if he becomes like our Obama? Obama, he just like his influence, his tentacles were still there with Biden. What if like somebody else wins, but Trump is like kind of the guy behind the green door running everything?
Oh, good question. Thank you, and I will address that. Yeah, Obama still has a lot of influence in the Republican Party. Could Trump do that? Definitely, definitely, especially if he's successful, like the economy's good in 4 years from now. He will still have a lot of influence, although he's going to be old. And that's another factor. Obama's younger. So eventually, age is going to catch up with Trump. It catches up to us all. Ron Paul, though, I really like Ron Paul on most things, and he's pretty old, but he's almost like 90, but he's still pretty sharp. So hopefully Trump will be that way, but eventually age catches up to people. But even if like Trump should die, if he's successful, his influence will resonate on. Reagan fundamentally changed the Republican Party. A lot of people don't remember that because a lot of you are a lot younger. But in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, Republicans were dominated by the Rockefeller wing of the party. And those were like those, like Monopoly Man, with the monocle and the top hat and Mr. Businessman. They were kind of socially liberal, but, they're the big fat cats. And Reagan brought in some populism and fundamentally changed the Republican Party for a generation. People harken back to Reagan. And, they don't harken back to like Gerald Ford or Bush, any of the Bushes, because they were pretty weak people. But Reagan, love him, hate him. He did some things I like, some things I didn't like. And again, Z-Man and I did a show about Reagan. It's still up. Check that out. We had a good discussion about that. You can find it. But Trump is that way. Love him or hate him, he's transformational. He's just not, he's not like a Biden just sitting there not doing anything. He's doing a lot of stuff. So definitely, even if he should die, his influence will continue in the party. And I think that's a good thing because I think we needed that populism that he brings in too. And a lot of the Republicans started to go the way of the neocons, and we got to have open borders and so-called free trade. And I think Donald Trump is bringing back some common sense. So great question. Great question. And again, if you guys want to call in to the show, let me just give you guys a link. And everyone's been great callers. They just call in, ask a question real quick, and drop off. And that's the best way for entertainment value. So got some more links for you guys. If you want to call in, don't be shy. And I want to get back to the whole ADL thing. And the other question that was raised by the guy from Britain about, will America ever get away from a certain control? And if we're talking about Israel, we're already seeing that starting to break apart, and it's breaking apart on demographics, mostly age. Israel basically or Zionism has two supporters. They have people like Ben Shapiro, right? They're ethnic Jews, which makes sense. It's their homeland. They support their ethnic homeland. And Christian Zionists. And I've talked about Christian Zionism before, and I usually don't get too much into religion on my shows, but when it intersects with politics, I have to. And there's a lot of flavors of Christian Zionism, but for whatever reason, Christian Zionism, and there's reasons I can explain why, but just accept it. It became very popular in America, especially the South, with a lot of Baptists and Protestants. And they bought into this notion that the modern Israel represents like the Israel in Genesis. It doesn't, but whatever. And if we bless Israel, these people, God will bless us. It's, again, I'm not going to go through their whole theology. It's kind of it's part of their end times belief that Jesus is coming back. There's going to be a third temple, and they're going to sacrifice a red heifer, and then the Antichrist is coming, and Gog and Magog, and that represents China and Russia, and it's this Armageddon. Again, we could have a whole series of shows on that topic, and that's not my point. It's just suffice to say that was a very popular opinion with a lot of Christians, even right-wingers. These guys are right-wing on every other topic. Like I would imagine most of and I live in a very red area, red county. This is red where I live, big time red. Bunch of ranchers, good old boys. Hardly anyone probably voted for Kamala. But sadly, probably most of them are Christian Zionists because that's how they were raised. But a couple of things are changing that now. One is just the country is no longer as religious as it used to be. That's a change that a lot of people don't appreciate as much. It used to be people, even normal families, religion was important. I mean, you could debate did they really believe, but they would regularly go to church as an important part of their life, and the people would speak of God much more so than Europe. And so it's something that they really believed in. They went to church on a regular basis. But I would say in the past generation, even in the South, that's changing. Most people, I don't think, go to church anymore, especially young people. I know some do, but a lot of them don't. And so they're not as much into that old time religion. And that's not all good. That's creating some other problems. But one of the side effects is they're not really being exposed to Christian Zionism anymore. And so they don't really see, well, wait a minute, I don't see why we should support Israel. They're a foreign country. Why should we support them so much? And so that is a change based on age. And so again, the older, and again, I'm not picking on boomers, but boomer Christians tend to support Israel. They're dying off, to be honest. That's the right, so-called right, let's say. And then the left, they don't like Israel because they support the Palestinians because Palestinians are Muslims. And I know this will get a lot of people mad, but most of the left considers Jewish people to be white people, and they consider Israel being white people persecuting brown people, right? And white people bad. That's how they think. And so just because they oppose Israel, which I talked about earlier in this program, doesn't mean they're on our side. In fact, they would hate you. So you have these two forces happening, like you had the people protesting against Israel, what's happening in Gaza on college campuses that the government quickly cracked down on. And then you just have the people on the right, especially people in our spheres. There's not much support for Israel among, like, even podcasters. Very little, especially with younger people, assuming they're not, let's say, Jewish. There's very little support. Now, maybe some of the older people, they're still, like Megyn Kelly or something, but it's just not there otherwise. So that's changing. So I think we're seeing a change here with our relationship with Israel. Israel understands that the lobby, and they're really worried about that, and they're frantically trying to censor people and do everything else, but they've lost control. And so that is a change. Now, will foreign influence still have a lot of influence over politicians? Yeah, unless we fundamentally change how we do things. And how we would have to change it is, number one, I would like to make it illegal I don't think we should allow millions of dollars for campaigning. Your campaigning should just be, maybe you put together a video, you have your position, maybe a debate. I would ban most campaigning. We shouldn't have campaigning. It's like selling a product. I disagree with that. I would like to see restrictions on that. And I would definitely like to make it illegal for organizations like AIPAC, which are, despite what they say they're American, but they're getting money from Israel, influencing our politicians, like mine in Arkansas, Tom Cotton. All he focuses on is Israel. And why is that? Well, big reason is he gets his campaign funds from them. That's a problem. We need to eliminate that. I'm not just saying Israel, any country. You know, if there's like some Russian influence organization or Chinese influence organization, we should not tolerate that either. We should shut that down. So that would help. And then we need to really diversify the media and Hollywood, which may be happening anyway because of AI. So maybe technology is helping in this area. Part of the problem with like the media and Hollywood has been not everyone is a Zionist in those two industries, but they're disproportionately, let's say, Zionist or of a certain ethnic persuasion. And they have a lot of influence in trying to shape minds of people through their propaganda. And that monopoly needs to be broke to get other ideas out there. And that would limit the influence other people outside of America have on our country. Because I would assume someone like Tom Cotton, there's probably a lot of things going on there why he supports Israel over his home state of Arkansas. One, if he was from Arkansas, I think he was originally. I doubt he knows how to get back here, but he probably was from here. So he probably was raised a Christian, and he was probably raised a Christian Zionist. So he probably believes that anyway. But then he found out, like, hey, running for Senate or Congress, or he gets a lot of money from the Israeli lobby. This is great. And then, hey, I don't want to get him mad, otherwise my money dries up. Then even worse, if I say no, I don't think we should give you money, Israel, not because I hate you, but we don't have the money. They will have their ethnic kin run stories against me in the media that I'm anti-Semite, and then I don't want to be called that. So there's a carrot and a stick that's going on there. We really need to break that apart because that's, I think, really harmful to what we're doing. So great question, though. So thank you for that. Now, with the ADL and the FBI kind of staffing down on this, it'd be interesting if we see certain people disappear because they were informants. I think there was a lot more informants than we realized, people that weren't legitimate, but they were working for the FBI. Not that they were FBI employees, but they were doing certain talking points, trying to attract people. I think I've ran into a few. Honestly, I'm not going to say who, but yeah, they get with you and then they try to push you doing something that's kind of borderline illegal. It's like, it's really interesting. And then when I say, no, I'm not interested, they just disappear. And it's like, wow, that's weird. Well, why is that? I've had a couple of cases like that. So I think a lot of people in our sphere have been a little bit smarter about this. We understand that, and we get a little skeptical of someone that just pops out of nowhere and starts trying to get you organized in a group and starts wanting for you to do kind of shady activities. Hey guys, let's get some guns and practice in the woods. And, hey, I can get you this illegal type of gun, stuff like that. There should be red flag, red flag. They're glowing. And I think we're a lot more sophisticated in that now to spot that sort of thing. So they really haven't been able to do much, the FBI. I think they've tried, but there's not much illegal going on. They've tried to entrap people, but they haven't even had much success with that recently. So I think the FBI is just moving on to other things now, which they should anyway. So I guess that's good news here. But thank you. KMax sent me that link beforehand, and I do appreciate that. Let's see here. We got some Ukraine updates. I haven't talked about this too much, but let's take a look here. Charlie Kirk. Breaking: Putin meets Trump's diplomatic envoy Steve Witkoff. That's Trump's personal friend. The Kremlin confirmed the meeting is to discuss efforts to ceasefire with Ukraine and a possible meeting with Trump. I don't talk about the war every day just because it's kind of a lot of people aren't interested in it. They find it boring. And it's a war of attrition, meaning it's kind of slow moving. It's not like a lot of exciting big arrow movements or anything like that. It's kind of trench warfare. It's a bloody mess, kind of like World War I, really. But basically where this is right now is Russia just recently is starting a new offensive across the entire line of combat, which is different. Previous offenses have been at specific cities like Bakhmut or Mariupol, but now they seem to be doing a general offensive. Russia, despite all the propaganda we were fed for the past few years, their army hasn't been 90% eliminated, even according to the head Ukrainian general. He had an interview and he admitted that the Russian army is a lot larger now than it was when the war started. So Russia's not running out of people, even though they've lost a lot of people. They are refilling the ranks. Whereas Ukraine, that's not the case. They have a huge manpower shortage, and they potentially will have a artillery shell shortage and drone shortage compared to the Russians. That's going to get worse if the United States does not provide them with more weapons. And it doesn't seem like Trump wants us to spend a lot of money on Ukraine for a variety of reasons. One reason is he doesn't really care about it. He keeps saying, maybe correctly, that the war wouldn't have happened if he was president back then. He might be right. But also, I think they're really pivoting more towards the threat of China. That's kind of really where they're looking. Whether they should or not, that's another issue. But I don't think his heart's into this forever war with Ukraine. And one of the important parts to understand, and even the Ukrainian head general agreed with, there was a New York Times report that confirmed what a lot of us have been saying since the beginning of the war. This was really, or is, a proxy war between the United States and Russia. And while we don't have any troops there, although some mercenaries went over there, we were basically running the war, our generals, not Ukraine. So all the intelligence was the United States, all the planning was the United States, all the major decisions were from the United States, and Ukraine pretty much was just fodder, like the pawns. And now, because there's losing going on, Ukraine is losing, by the way, there's a lot of finger pointing, and the people that previously ran the war at the Pentagon, they're pointing the blame at Ukraine, saying, well, they're just stupid. We gave them a great strategy. We had a great strategy. Our generals, yeah, we're brilliant. It's just they messed it up. They wouldn't listen to us carefully enough, and they sometimes just do their own things. They're just dumb. So that was the American position, because they don't want to take blame for the defeats. And Ukraine then is pointing the finger back to America, saying, hey, they led us down a primrose to destruction, primrose path to destruction, and we're not getting enough weapons that we need. And the United States weapons we thought were going to be super weapons. That's how they were advertised to us. You know, remember the Abrams tanks? That was going to be a game changer. They turned out to be pretty much useless. And the F-16s, they're scared to fly them because of Russian anti-air defense. So, you know, they just felt they're blaming us. So we're in the blame stage right now. So that's the status right now of the war. Russia's winning, and they look like they're on the offensive right now. So if they're winning, they don't really have that much of a reason to try to necessarily negotiate. And Witkoff told Trump, assuming this is true, that the fastest way to a ceasefire in Ukraine is to recognize Russia's control over LPR, I think that's Luhansk, DPR, Zaporozhye, and Kherson regions. So basically, Russia is saying something that we've known for a long time. Russia's not fighting this war to conquer the world, to take over France like Macron is trying to fearmonger, or invade Britain, although I wish they would. Britain needs liberating. But sadly, that's not Russia's goal. And even more so, it's never been Russia's goal to take all of Ukraine. They're just interested in the eastern provinces that have historically been Russian people, the Russian language. And the people in these provinces, they had a referendum and they voted to join Russia. You could say that was a fraud or whatever, but that's what happened. I mean, I guess we could have another vote with observers to make sure it's fair, but they would overwhelmingly vote to be part of Russia because they consider themselves part of Russia, and they felt they've been persecuted under the Ukrainians ever since Victoria Nuland and those neocons did the coup in 2014 that the United States did against the president. The president of Ukraine used to be friendly with Russia, but we didn't want to have any of that. So we meddled, overthrew the prime minister or president, and put our puppet in. And the puppet, we wanted to agitate against Russia, and they started to kill a lot of ethnic Russians, and especially the eastern parts, started a civil war in Ukraine. And then, of course, in 2022, I believe it was, Russia invaded on behalf of the eastern provinces. But the point is, this war was always about these eastern provinces and Ukraine, although Russia's had Ukraine for quite a while now. But Russia's saying these provinces are theirs, and they want recognition of them. And if they get them, they'll probably stop the war. So this sort of belies the notion that Russia wants to take over the world or anything like that. They don't. They just want these provinces. Of course, Zelensky doesn't want to agree to that. He doesn't want to give 1 inch of what he considers Ukrainian territory to Russia. And his European backers, specifically Starmer, Macron, they don't want that either. Starmer, he doesn't really give a shit about the British people. All he's focused on is hating Russians. That's all he's about now. And I think he fears if there's no longer a war, he would not have a purpose. Starmer and Macron, they want an external enemy to try to keep their populace under control because the people are really suffering in Britain. Economically, they're suffering. They shut down their last steel mill. From immigration, they poured in so many third worlders. There's so much knife crime, and people are miserable now in Britain. So it's a bad situation in Britain. So they need an external enemy. Starmer does. So he doesn't want the war to end. But the problem that Europe has is they become weak and they don't have enough manufacturing to supply Ukraine. They need the United States. And Trump's not really keen on this war. He wants to end the war. But he doesn't want to be seen as the president that lost the war. So we're trying to get a settlement. I'm skeptical because I don't think Zelensky would agree to such a thing. Neither would Zelensky's backers. But I think what will happen if Zelensky doesn't agree to something like this, the United States will say, well, we tried, but we're out of this war then. Good luck, Ukraine. And then that'd be the end for Ukraine, at least the eastern provinces, because they wouldn't be able to continue the war very long with just Britain and Germany and France helping them because, again, those countries are weak. So that's probably how it would end. But I'm not very optimistic on a ceasefire or peace settlement happening. It just doesn't seem very likely that that's going to be the situation here. So, yeah, good times there. All right. Let's see here. All right. Well, it's about an hour in, and guys, thank you. I didn't have many questions online, but that's fine. I got some really good callers in. It's always good when I get callers. I do appreciate that. And I love my Friday night show that I just kind of wrap up the week with it. And so it's good. Next week, the schedule should be normal. I haven't decided what our topic will be on Wednesday night with Z-Man, but we'll come up with something great. If you guys have an idea, just check with me on Twitter, send me a DM or something, and I'll run it by Z-Man. And I'll have the RAMZPAUL show next week every day, Monday through Friday. I enjoy that. Maybe we'll do Night House Sunday. I don't know. That's our one-off show. That's kind of a different show. But guys, thank you for being here. Be sure to subscribe to me on Substack. I really do appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.